The date the obsessive Sterling heiress had schemed and begged me for was stolen by the player meant to save her. He used his system to lock me in the equipment room, smugly telling me, "Just watch. I'm going to take everything that's yours one by one." I remained calm, watching him meticulously get ready, humming a little tune as he left for the date. Oh, I forgot to tell him. The Sterling family's eldest daughter is an absolutely unhinged, love-obsessed maniac, and no one but me can soothe her extreme, violent moods, and this date was an opportunity she had schemed and begged for countless times. The first time Dylan saw Chloe Sterling, his eyes lit up. He tugged on my sleeve and said, "I like her. Ethan, you'll help me, right?" At that moment, Chloe was grabbing a female classmate and beating her senseless without even blinking, her actions wild and unrestrained, exuding a raw ferocity. I frowned slightly, not missing the look of absolute determination in Dylan's eyes. This wasn't a request from Dylan, it was a declaration of war. He knew Chloe and I were childhood friends, practically inseparable, so his words were a direct message for me to back off. Of course, I knew why he was so confident, because he wasn't like a normal person. He was a player, someone who existed for the sole purpose of saving Chloe Sterling. Dylan licked his lips, his gaze on Chloe filled with a kind of greed. I love this type, the crazy, possessive ones. It's a real turn-on. I ignored his arrogant words, because if I didn't intervene, Chloe was going to kill someone. The girl pinned to the ground by Chloe was the class arts representative, Jessica Miller. She usually seemed gentle and polite, so I had no idea how she provoked Chloe, but now she was trapped, blood trickling from her nose. Chloe had always had a bad temper and didn't need a reason to start a fight, but I had rarely seen her lose control like this. Many people were shouting at me, "Ethan, you have to stop her. If this goes on, something terrible will happen." They all knew that only I could calm Chloe in this state. I gently placed my hand on Chloe's back, but my voice was cold and firm, leaving no room for argument. "Chloe, stop." It wasn't the first time I'd patted her back like this. Chloe was extreme and radical, having grown into the kind of person that gave the Sterling family the biggest headaches, fighting, brawling, and a solitary nature. No one could control her except me. When the Sterlings found out Chloe would listen to me, they acted as if they'd found their savior, coming to my father's door to beg him multiple times. Finally, with my consent, they went to great lengths to get us into the same class. For that, Chloe even had to repeat a grade. As I soothed her, Chloe stopped. Jessica on the ground could finally breathe. She scrambled up, wiped the blood from the corner of her lip, and a smirk formed on her face. "I told you, Chloe, either you beat me to death or I won't let you off the hook." By not letting her off the hook, she meant reporting the fight to the teachers. The teachers already disliked Chloe, and with this incident, she'd get a disciplinary mark at the very least. And we were already seniors. A demerit at this stage couldn't be erased. It would be on her permanent record for life. It was true that Chloe was in the wrong for hitting someone. I pursed my lips, looking at Chloe with some concern. "Why did you hit her?" Chloe didn't speak, just quietly leaned against me, silently clutching my hand and dusting off some dirt I'd gotten on myself when I rushed over. That's when Dylan stepped forward, smiled at Chloe, and said, "I'm sure Chloe had her reasons for hitting someone. Ethan, you can't possibly not trust her, right?" As he spoke, he also reached out to pat Chloe's back. Besides, it was cool watching Chloe fight. I really like girls like that. Hearing this, Jessica was not pleased. "Are you saying I deserved it?" Jessica's face was visibly bruised with blood still at the corner of her lips. Dylan just looked at Chloe's face, entranced, and reached out to support her. "Chloe, let me help you to the nurse's office." Chloe's beautiful face didn't have a single scratch on it. In front of everyone, I slapped Dylan right across the face. Dylan had been suddenly brought back from the countryside by my father, but in my 17 years of life, I had never heard of such a cousin. My father had instructed me, "Your cousin has had a hard life. His parents died in an accident at a young age, so he'll be living with us from now on. You'll be going to school together, so you need to take care of him." His parents died in an accident, but Dylan didn't look at all like someone who had just lost his parents. For instance, the moment he moved in, he started buying clothes with the Walker family's money. In just one day, his room was filled with designer shoes and bags. But he clearly wasn't satisfied, muttering to himself while shopping. "The Walker family is so stingy. Their corporation has a daily turnover in the tens of millions, and they give me 100 grand for a new wardrobe? It's like they're tossing scraps to a beggar. Dylan didn't know that the staff at home were completely loyal to me. He had barely finished saying those words before they reached my ears. The Walker family had a very strict upbringing. Logically, even if Dylan was a distant relative, he shouldn't have been raised to be like this. On Dylan's first day of school, he chose a pure white sweatshirt for himself. If I wasn't mistaken, it was the most expensive item among all the clothes he bought, worth $20,000. He also used hairspray, admiring his handsome jawline in the mirror with great narcissism. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was going on a blind date, not to class. I understood that everything Dylan was doing was to make a good first impression on Chloe. Honestly, if someone could truly save Chloe, I'd be quite happy. Dylan could use love to reform Chloe or use gentleness to stay by her side, but he chose a method I could not accept. He praised Chloe for fighting so coolly. If Chloe took that to heart, all my efforts over the years would be for nothing. I looked at Dylan, whose face I had just slapped to the side, and I smiled. If there's a next time, it won't be just a slap. Dylan looked at me in disbelief, clearly resentful that I had hit him, but he didn't dare argue with me further. I took Chloe's hand and asked her, "Give me a reason. Why did you hit her?" Jessica sneered. "What other reason could there be? Does Chloe need a reason to hit someone? Isn't she just a psycho?" "I wasn't asking you." I shot her a look and turned my gaze back to Chloe. At this moment, Chloe was like a puppy that had done something wrong, her head hanging low, her mood somber, her expression cold and aloof, yet she stubbornly held onto my hand, refusing to let go. After a long while, she finally spoke, her voice full of grievance. "You promised to take me to the amusement park. Does that still count?" She had promised me again and again that she would be good, that she wouldn't have another episode, just to get me to go to the amusement park with her in a few days. But now she had hit someone, and I had seen it. I never expected that in this situation, the thing she was worried about was whether I would break my promise. I was so angry, I had to laugh. Chloe was an extremely messed up person, something I had known for a long time. This wasn't the first or second incomprehensible thing she had done. For example, when we first started high school, on the very first day, just because a girl in our class looked at me the wrong way, that girl nearly had her leg broken in an alley that afternoon. When I found Chloe, she was like a fluffed-up, angry fox, impossible to hold back. But the truth was that girl was my cousin, and she was just surprised to see me in the same class. Because of that incident, I found Chloe to be completely unreasonable, but she acted as if she had no regrets. Looking at the injuries on her body is proof of her love for me. I won't let anyone who looks at you like that get away with it. I was so angry back then. I tapped her on her little head. "But that's my cousin, you idiot. She has no other intentions towards me." Realizing I was genuinely angry, she finally deflated, and after a long time, she clumsily squeezed out, "Don't be angry, I was wrong." She was always quick to apologize, but she never changed her ways. I didn't want to deal with her anymore. That night, I told Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, "I can't handle your daughter at all. She doesn't listen to me. From now on, let's just go our separate ways. Don't tie me to her anymore." At that time, I realized that Chloe was like a ticking time bomb, liable to go crazy and cause trouble for me at any moment. Today, she could hurt others. Tomorrow, she could hurt me. I was a good citizen who abided by core socialist values, but she clearly seemed like a sociopathic lunatic. However, I couldn't get rid of Chloe because after learning that I didn't want to manage her anymore, Chloe stood outside my house that night. Even in a downpour, she insisted on seeing me, her drenched figure looking like a pathetic stray dog. I told her to get lost, but she shouted at the top of her lungs, "Ethan Walker, don't abandon me. If you think I did something wrong, just tell me. I'll change, I swear I'll change." You have to understand, this entire neighborhood of villas was home to the most famous families in the New York high society circles. Her one shout destroyed the reputation and face my Walker family had painstakingly maintained for years. From that night on, everyone in our circle basically knew that infatuated girl from the Sterling family was stuck on Ethan Walker. Just an infatuated girl. I looked at Chloe's beautiful features, feeling a bit dazed. I didn't think Chloe was infatuated. On the contrary, I always felt Chloe was a burden. While all the other boys were playing sports and basketball with their friends, I had almost no friends because of Chloe, because no one dared to hang out with me. The few boys who did approach me either did so because Chloe was beautiful and getting close to me meant they could hang out with her, or because I was the young master of the Walker family and they wanted to use me to get into this circle. But these few friends all stayed away after witnessing Chloe's vicious side. On top of my studies, I had the responsibility of looking after Chloe, and she was always causing trouble, which annoyed me to no end. So if I could choose, I would unhesitatingly distance myself from Chloe. That's why when Dylan arrived, I really wanted to just drop Chloe and say, "Since you like her so much, you can have her." I didn't want her anyway. But Dylan also gave me a feeling that made me not want him to get his way. For example, on his first day at the Walker house, I was concentrating on a vase, practicing my flower arranging skills, but he casually took the flowers from my hand and said affectionately, "Cousin, I think your color combination is off. Red and green together look tacky." It was true, my aesthetic sense was notoriously bad. In our elite circle, I loved all things bright red and purple. Emerald green with rubies and blue roses with red petals were my favorite things to do. But at that moment, I curled my lip and said in my usual lazy tone, "I'm rich. They're my flowers. I can ruin them however I want." As I said this, I glanced at the white rose he was about to snap in his hand, which was turning white at the knuckles. And these were all flown in from France, cultivated in the royal gardens. If you break one, you can't afford to pay for it. Out of my father's sight, his face was filled with gloom. When he turned to my father, his expression was incredibly aggrieved. "Uncle, does my cousin not like me?" I really wasn't mocking his taste. It's just that his flower arrangement really isn't that good. He thought my father would at least scold me for my arrogance. But to his surprise, my father just patted his shoulder. "Your cousin is indeed rich. He can do whatever he wants with his money, so don't you go telling him what to do." Oh, he had just arrived and didn't know yet. The Walker family was where it was today, all because of me, a business genius. Although I was only 17, I was indeed rich, lots and lots of money. I lazily lifted my eyes, taking in the jealousy in Dylan's eyes with every move I made. At the same time, I was a little puzzled. Why would the system choose such a rude boy to save Chloe? Yes, my only evaluation of Dylan was that he was rude. Very rude. When I heard the word amusement park, I could clearly feel Dylan's excitement. He gave a wicked smile and came forward to grab my hand. How could my cousin not keep his word? "Don't worry, he'll definitely go." Of course, I knew why he was so happy to hear amusement park, because the system had told Dylan that the amusement park was the turning point where Chloe would truly be saved. Only there could he truly replace me and make Chloe fall in love with him. Before I could even speak, I watched Dylan agree on my behalf. I wanted to refuse, but when my gaze met Chloe's increasingly intense eyes, I was momentarily speechless. But I still hadn't forgotten what I originally wanted to ask. "So, why did you hit her?" Someone nearby seemed unable to watch any longer and quietly raised their hand. Because Jessica first said, "Ethan Walker is so handsome," and then Chloe went crazy. Jessica giggled, not feeling she was in the wrong at all. "Yeah, I just complimented your good figure a few times, and Chloe pinned me down and started hitting me." "What? Can't I even give a compliment now?" Jessica's gaze slid unsubtle down past my waist, clearly filled with indecent thoughts. In that instant, I roughly understood why Chloe had beaten up Jessica. My expression instantly turned cold. Noticing the change in my mood, Chloe's first reaction was that she had made me angry again, and a trace of panic appeared. "I can apologize." She hung her head, a cut still on the corner of her lip, the blood having already dried a bit. Chloe subconsciously licked her lips. Seeing Chloe's dejected state, Jessica immediately became smug. "That's right. Get on your knees and apologize to me, or I'll report you to the teachers and get you a demerit." Everyone knew that I was always extremely strict when it came to Chloe's troublemaking, and Chloe, whenever I scolded her, would be very obedient and very sad. In front of everyone, I spoke up. "If you dare report this to the teachers, I'll go to your parents today and tell them you've been having lewd thoughts about me and demand an explanation." Jessica was known at school as a well-read and polite good girl. Only a very few people knew how dirty and despicable she was in private, but she would never dare let her father know she was like that behind the scenes. If he found out, it would definitely be another round of family discipline. Dylan frowned. "Cousin, it's not right for you to twist the facts and aid the villain like this." I know you want to protect the person you're closer to, but this isn't the way to do it. You were the one who said Chloe fighting was cool, and now you're the one who wants her punished? Dylan, what are you really up to? I rolled my eyes at Dylan, not caring what he would think next, and just looked at Jessica. If you don't want your dad to know, then be good. Besides, you know exactly why you got beaten up. Chloe hadn't expected this either, and suddenly became nervous. You're not angry? What would I be angry about? I smiled. Jessica didn't get a raw deal. I could probably guess the kind of filthy language Jessica used when talking about me in private. It was definitely not as simple as just complimenting my looks. Besides, it wasn't the first time I'd overheard Jessica talking about me. What Walker family young master? In the future, he's just going to be another piece of merchandise sold off in a marriage alliance. So the fact that I hadn't sought personal revenge already showed my good character. After saying that, I took Chloe and left. I also knew that at this moment, the look in Dylan's eyes as he watched my back was as if it had been dipped in poison. He didn't want me to be good to Chloe because he didn't want her to become more dependent on me because of my protection. But I didn't care, and I wasn't going to take this lying down. Dylan was indeed furious. I heard him talking to his system. Can't you just make this Ethan Walker die? He's too much of a hindrance. With him around, Chloe won't even look at me. Talking to her is like talking to a block of wood. I heard the system coldly reply to Dylan. Inflicting harm on any NPC is forbidden. Violators will be punished ranging from electric shocks to complete obliteration. Although Dylan was dissatisfied, muttering curses under his breath, he wasn't really expecting the system to just erase me. I was just talking. It's just that this Ethan Walker is really infuriating. Don't worry, I still want to do this myself. After all, I'm the main character here. The system's voice was icy. Then what does the player intend to do? Dylan sneered. I'm going to make Ethan Walker watch as Chloe and I fall in love, completely helpless. I'm also going to take his place in the Walker family, his love life, his academics, his family. I'm going to take them all one by one. Yes, I could hear the conversation between Dylan and his system. I don't know why. This was also how I knew Dylan had a system. But Dylan was unaware of this. I didn't know why Dylan had such hostility towards me. While he was communicating with his system, his face was still beaming at me with a sweet smile. Cousin, since you don't like Chloe, you should stop leading her on. After all, I like her. He winked at me. A cousin like you wouldn't stoop so low as to fight with your younger cousin over a woman, right? At the same time, I heard him ask his system, but this is really a hassle. Why couldn't you let me conquer a girl with a clean slate? Having to fight another man for a woman really doesn't suit my status as the main character. Besides, this Ethan Walker is such a manipulative jerk, pretending not to like Chloe while still leading her on. It's disgusting. Meeting Dylan's smile, I nonchalantly shifted my gaze elsewhere. I wasn't angry. It just brought some things to mind. Although I had been the one looking after Chloe all these years, only I knew that the reason I got involved with her in the first place was all my own fault. I wasn't a good kid. Although I looked like a good student when I was younger, and Chloe was the one who was a handful, I had started smoking in middle school and had dabbled in all sorts of things a middle schooler shouldn't have. But just as my father was about to find out, I shoved the cigarette into Chloe's hand. She took the blame and got a beating for me. From that moment on, my inextricable bond with Chloe began. So later, whenever I wanted to wash my hands of her, Chloe would say with downcast eyes, "Who was it that knelt in the ancestral hall for 3 days? Who was it that bore the scolding for being a bad influence at such a young age?" I could only obediently go back to disciplining Chloe. In my eyes, Chloe was a villain. She was perfectly capable of controlling herself. She was far from being as bad as outsiders saw her, but she always had to lose control and cause trouble for me, sticking to me. What made me even more speechless was that a Chloe like this actually had a player who wanted to conquer her. Speaking of which, Chloe had had quite a few pursuers since she was young. As far back as I can remember, there were always men flocking around her. In kindergarten, a little boy offered her a lollipop, saying, "From now on, I'll only let you taste sweetness, never bitterness." In middle school, a young gangster protected her. With me here, no one can bully you. In high school, many top students pursued her as well. But magically, after failing to win Chloe's affection, all these people gave up one after another and disappeared from her life. I sometimes wondered if it was because Chloe was too difficult to handle that this player Dylan was created, but on second thought, It seemed unlikely. After all, the quality of the guys who pursued Chloe before was much higher than Dylan's. The little boy who pursued Chloe in kindergarten came from a family of politicians for 3 generations, with a clean family background and a kind heart. At least when he gave Chloe the candy, his intentions were good. The young gangster who pursued Chloe in middle school was the son of the world's richest man. Although he was arrogant and a bit crazy, he later helped me in business and was considered a prodigy everywhere except at school. The top student who pursued Chloe in high school, although from a poor family, held his head high and consistently ranked first in the grade through his own efforts, which was respectable. And this Dylan, what was he? I looked at the sweetly smiling Dylan with a hint of disgust and turned to leave. If Chloe, after passing through a forest of flowers without a single leaf sticking to her for so many years, was finally won over by Dylan, then I would have nothing to say. I heard Dylan behind me asking with some dissatisfaction, "Why didn't you let me appear before Chloe met Ethan Walker?" The system said coldly, "It's not that we didn't consider it, but from the moment Chloe can remember, her world has only ever had Ethan Walker in it. This system cannot interfere with the self-operating trajectory of an NPC." My footsteps faltered for a moment, but I didn't stop. I knew Dylan's system was something else, and I knew he wouldn't just sit back and watch me go to the amusement park with Chloe. But I didn't expect him to choose such a foolish method. He used his system to trap me in the equipment room, preventing me from leaving. I frowned and asked him, "What are you trying to do?" Dylan looked smug. "You just stay here. Don't worry. I've already told Chloe you went ahead to the amusement park. She should be on her way there alone by now. It doesn't matter who the date is with in the end." I sighed. Dylan thought I would throw a fit, so seeing me calm made him unhappy. "What's with that reaction?" I smiled. "I wish you success. Not all men will fight over a woman." With that, I calmly sat down on a chair in the equipment room and opened the college prep book I carried with me. "I'll wait for you to get back." I even gave a little wave. "Bye-bye." Dylan was speechless. He snorted. "Fake studying. Everyone knows the Walker family is loaded. How could you possibly have the peace of mind to study vocabulary? Stop pretending." After saying that, he turned and left. I just shook my head and started seriously studying. Dylan, this player, hadn't done his background check properly. I wasn't like those young masters in novels who only rely on their family background. The Walker family was, in a way, built up by me. Moreover, if Dylan had looked closely, he would have known that I wasn't studying from a regular vocabulary book. It was from my college prep. In the future, I wouldn't just be dealing with school, social circles, or companies. I would be facing the international stage, navigating among giants both domestic and foreign. The Walker family was aristocratic. It shouldn't have a subpar son, not because the Walker family wanted a glorious future, but because I wouldn't allow myself to fall behind, and Dylan would never understand this principle. When Jessica's call came, I had just finished 2 pages, but this time Jessica wasn't calling to cause trouble, but to reluctantly ask for my help. "Chloe's in trouble." She paused, then added, "No, wait, it should be Dylan who's in trouble." In any case, no matter who was in trouble, it wasn't going to be a good thing. When I arrived at the amusement park, I saw Chloe forcefully smashing an ice cream cone into Dylan's face. Surrounding Dylan were about a dozen delinquent-looking girls with dyed yellow hair. Jessica said she had originally just wanted to catch me and Chloe on a date to get evidence of our early romance. So she followed Chloe to the amusement park, only to find Dylan secretly arranging for these dozen or so girls to put on a show. How did she know Dylan was acting? Because just a few minutes earlier, she saw Dylan joking around with those girls, pulling out a wad of cash from his pocket for them to share. Then when he saw Chloe approaching, the scene changed to the girls surrounding him with malicious intent. But unexpectedly, Chloe showed no intention of helping Dylan. Then Dylan pointed at Chloe, claiming she was his girlfriend, and the dozen girls promptly surrounded Chloe. Up to this point, everything was developing as planned. Chloe just said slowly, "I'm in a good mood today. Don't make me angry." The girls, having taken the money, naturally didn't listen and started pushing her. That's when the ice cream accidentally got on Chloe's clothes. Jessica said that's when Chloe's face instantly darkened. All anyone heard her say was, "Do you have any idea how long I spent picking out this outfit?" And then it was no longer about the dozen girls not letting her leave. It was her not letting anyone leave. This was the first time Dylan had truly witnessed Chloe's unhinged side. His face, his hair, his eyes were all mashed into the ice cream. The sticky Haagen-Dazs covered him. The shirt he had carefully chosen was ruined. None of the dozen or so people around dared to step in because in that moment, everyone knew who Chloe Sterling was. And while doing all this, Chloe's eyes even held a faint smile. But the veins on her wrist were bulging as if she were looking at a helpless dog. She had trained in Taekwondo. Her strength was greater than a man's. Seeing me arrive, Dylan looked as if he had been saved, waving at me for help. "Cousin, help me. Chloe is a complete lunatic. Not only did she watch me get cornered by thugs and do nothing, she did this to me." Chloe slowly pushed his head back into the Haagen-Dazs one more time before letting go. She took out a handkerchief, wiping her hands almost self-punitively, and looked at me with serious, pitiful eyes. "He ruined the clothes I carefully picked out and the date I prepared for so long." She lowered her head, her whole body seeming to radiate grievance. "I don't like him." But her hands couldn't help but tremble in panic. "Don't be angry." Dylan ran up to me. "Cousin, maybe I was wrong, but is Chloe completely blameless? What normal person would want to kill someone over a little ice cream? This is just ice cream. If she had a knife next time, would she kill someone?" I chuckled, completely ignoring how dirty Dylan's face was. When my palm cleanly and crisply landed on his face, he was stunned. My smile didn't reach my eyes. "Dylan, get lost." Chloe hadn't had an episode in a long time, which was why I had agreed to come to the amusement park with her, but Dylan had only been around for a few days and Chloe had already gone crazy twice. I wasn't an idiot. Although Jessica wasn't a good person in private, she wouldn't do something so blatant as to provoke Chloe. For example, this time Jessica could have just ignored it, but she still called to tell me. The Miller family and the Walker family were old family friends. The fact that Dylan could lock me in the equipment room showed something. Although Dylan couldn't erase an NPC, he could restrict them, or rather, he could control the actions of some NPCs. So that day, Dylan's real intention was probably to make me misunderstand Chloe, get angry, and allow him to swoop in. After all, everyone knew I didn't like it when Chloe went crazy, and this time it was obviously Dylan's scheme as well. Actually, none of these were big deals. They were just petty, insignificant tricks. But I had just seen that most of the dozen or so girls with dyed hair he had hired were delinquents from a juvenile detention center. I had even seen 2 of them before. The obscure alleys near middle schools are often hotbeds for crime, potentially involving assault, drug use, and bullying. When the police come, they scatter like birds. When they're not there, they're all buddy-buddy and up to no good. When I was in middle school, I had a smoking habit and hung out with a small group. Coincidentally, 2 of them were 2 grades above us, and they had a history of drug addiction. People like that often can't be bought off with just money. I could tolerate Dylan treating us as unimportant NPCs, but I couldn't tolerate him claiming to be saving us while actually doing things to harm us. Dylan gritted his teeth, clutching the cheek I had slapped. "Ethan Walker, you're really something. You slapped me again. I'll remember this." After saying that, I hooked my arm with Chloe's and left. Chloe looked at the hand I was holding and smiled happily. Hee. I glanced at her and couldn't help but say, "Are you that happy?" Chloe and I rarely had close physical contact because before, I just saw her as a burden. But now, looking at her properly, I found that her features were exceptionally beautiful. When she wasn't causing trouble, her gaze was steady, and when she looked at me, her eyes were bright like brilliant stars. Unexpectedly, Chloe was only happy for a moment before her eyes dimmed again. "But my clothes are dirty. It took so long for you to agree to come out with me." I cut her off. "Do you like me?" I wasn't a fool. I could see it. I knew what all these actions meant. Chloe was stunned, and only after a long moment did she nod. "I do," I said. "Then study hard and get into the same university as me." Since the top student who used to pursue Chloe transferred, I had become the top student in our grade. The teachers all said I was a good candidate for the Ivy League. Chloe was still a bit behind, but I wanted her to try. The Sterling family could certainly have her inherit the family business, but I also wanted her to have real skills. Besides, if we were to have an arranged marriage in the future, the Sterling family was the best choice for the Walkers. When Dylan left the amusement park, his clothes were in disarray. The next day, the rumor that Ethan Walker, jealous of Dylan's date with Chloe, hired 17 delinquent girls to assault him spread throughout the school. When Dylan went to school, There were faint marks visible on his neck. He lowered his eyes, looking aggrieved. My parents are dead. My uncle was kind enough to let me live with the Walker family, but my cousin treats me like this. Does he think someone like me doesn't deserve happiness? Because Dylan had hired those delinquent girls, but only Jessica had told me and Chloe didn't know. Yesterday, I figured since he had hired them himself, I didn't bother with him when I left. Logically, since those people had taken the money, they shouldn't have done anything like that to Dylan. Besides, Dylan was a guy? I frowned slightly, unable to figure it out, but I quickly understood. Most of those kids were people without a bottom line or moral compass, so it wasn't surprising for them to turn on him. Moreover, for Dylan, he didn't lose out in this situation. Suddenly, rumors about me were flying everywhere. He always looks so noble and is always studying, but turns out he's no good behind the scenes. Anyone who hangs out with that psycho Chloe is also a psycho. The world of the rich is truly chaotic. But some people were skeptical. But Chloe has always been completely obedient to Ethan Walker. Would he really be jealous of Dylan? Isn't Dylan being a bit too dramatic? But most people still believe Dylan because the way he cried was earth-shatteringly dramatic. I frowned, not because of how badly I was being insulted. These rumors had no real impact on me. That afternoon, when I returned to the Walker house, the first thing I did was ask Dylan, was it really worth putting yourself on the line just to frame me? Dylan's actions were irresponsible to himself. Dylan just smiled arrogantly. What are you so worried about? Afraid Chloe will think you're vicious because of this? Or afraid that the image you've maintained for so many years will be ruined? You're only realizing it now? It's too late. It's your fault for always getting in my way. He raised his hand and smashed the vase of flowers I had arranged earlier. These flowers are as tacky as you are. They look noble, but they're destined to be trampled underfoot. The beautiful flowers were crushed under his Jordans. He had calculated that my father wasn't home, and the maids seemed to have their eyes covered, not seeing what he was doing, showing no reaction at all. But I probably knew why he was being so aggressive now, because I heard the system say, player progress on conquering Chloe Sterling has stalled. If this continues, you will be terminated shortly. Desperate times called for desperate measures, so Dylan couldn't wait any longer. So this time, he accepted the punishment of electric shocks in exchange for ensuring that no one could tell Chloe the truth about him hiring those delinquents. Jessica's memory was also erased, and all of it was blamed on me. Dylan's goal was simple. Cousin, you can't blame me. I just want Chloe to give up on you. At the same time, during the monthly exam, I collapsed on my desk due to an unavoidable stomachache. I dropped out of the top 10 in the monthly exam, and Dylan, with the help of his system, shot straight to first place. Dylan was very happy. Cousin, just accept it. I'm just better than you. Dylan's hostility towards me was very strong. His process of conquering was more about targeting me. Why? I heard Dylan's inner thoughts as he communicated with the system. I hate these prearranged NPCs the most. He clearly doesn't deserve anything, yet he gets to have a life that I could never dream of in the real world. So Dylan was jealous that I easily had everything he wanted. I smiled and sent Chloe a message on. Are you free tonight? I asked her to a movie. Even though Dylan had tried so hard to prove he was better than me in front of Chloe, when I asked her to a movie, she agreed without a second thought. She didn't care at all whether I had hired those delinquents. Dylan, you want to conquer Chloe, don't you? You'll be erased if you can't. Well then, let me send you home. After all, you've tried for so long with no results. Chloe was very obedient. After I told her that if she liked me, she should get into the same university as me, she started to work hard. And in the quiet movie theater, when I took her hand, I could feel her trembling with nervousness. She swallowed hard. Why? She was asking why I was suddenly being so close to her. I was direct. Chloe Sterling, can you fall in love with me? As long as she fell in love with me, Dylan's conquest would fail. Actually, all the things Dylan had done these past few days seemed quite ridiculous to me. They didn't really affect me much, but they were annoying. Now there was a simple and direct path in front of me. Why not take it? So I looked directly into Chloe's eyes, the kind where I'm the only one for you. The young master of the Walker family had never been very obedient, not one to follow others' arrangements, and had a rather wild nature. But I had one good thing. Whatever I wanted since I was a child, I would get it by any means necessary, and I had a high sense of entitlement. No matter what I wanted, I felt I deserved it. So if I wanted Chloe's affection, I would just say it. Chloe was stunned. I thought she didn't understand what I meant by like or love, and I was about to add, the kind of love a woman has for her husband. But before I could speak, I heard her soft and excited voice say, "But I've only ever loved you." At the same time, I seemed to hear the sound of the world's order collapsing, and Dylan's scream came from far away. His conquest had failed. When I got home, Dylan was completely deflated. Dylan's eyes were red as he stared at me. "You're so despicable. You knew Chloe liked you, but you kept leading her on. If it weren't for me affecting you, you would have continued to ignore her love, wouldn't you?" I couldn't be bothered to argue with him, but he was clearly not letting it go. "Ethan, I'm about to die, and you're still acting so high and mighty. It's really disgusting." I raised my eyes and asked him, "Before you came to this world and became a player, who were you?" Dylan's eyes widened in shock. "How did you know I'm a player?" I didn't say anything, just asked, "Before you came to this world, who were you?" Dylan smirked and looked away. "A normal person with bad grades. I got into a car accident, died, and then came to this world as a player," he said, puzzled. "In the novels, players get to date all sorts of people and get handsome rewards. But why is it completely different for me?" I didn't know what he meant by players and novels. I only knew, if you want to conquer Chloe, the first thing you should have done was to understand her preferences. A little digging would have told you that Chloe has been afraid of the dark since she was a child. Her mother had an affair and her father is hot-tempered, which led to her developing a personality disorder. That's why she's so volatile and prone to anger. So you had many ways to win her affection, like loving her, being there for her, but you never should have chosen to hurt her or yourself to get closer. I smiled faintly, looking at the increasingly shocked Dylan, and continued, "But you did none of that. You were constantly competing with me, even though I had no interest in competing with you." It was all because of his pathetic male pride. He thought he was the main character, so he couldn't tolerate someone as unrestrained as me in his sight. But from the beginning to the end, I had no desire to get involved in their love-hate drama. In his previous world, Dylan was just an ordinary kid, but he had unrealistic dreams of being a main character. There was nothing wrong with that in itself, but when he gained the corresponding power, he didn't have the right mindset and let jealousy cloud his judgment. When one's virtue doesn't match one's position, there will eventually be a backlash. So it couldn't change the fact that deep down, he was still a loser. After Dylan disappeared, I said to Chloe, "I was just kidding before, don't take it to heart." Chloe looked at me with deep eyes for a long time, then slowly squeezed my hand and said sullenly, "I knew it. The moment he was gone, you were going to take it all back." I was confused. "Wait, what did that mean?" I blinked. "Then you knew he was a player?" Chloe snorted and placed a kiss on the corner of my lips. "I knew. To be precise, all those boys who pursued me and then disappeared were players. I knew about all of them." I was completely baffled. Chloe's perspective. The system had sent over a dozen players to save me. These players had all sorts of main character personalities. For example, the wild and untamable school heartthrob, the proud and reserved top student, the gentle and refined prince of the New York elite. But they all ended in failure because I knew very well that they were all approaching me with a purpose. Every one of them looked at me with a strong sense of purpose. I didn't like it. The person I liked, his eyes didn't even have a purpose when he looked at me. In fact, most of the time he wanted to run away, thinking I was a burden. These players came one after another, and Ethan Walker repeatedly thought I was a troublemaker. At first, I could tolerate it, but the one thing they should never have done was, during the last conquest, the player's first move was to kill Ethan Walker directly. I was furious. If Ethan Walker died, my life seemed pretty meaningless too. After all, on a normal day, the way he managed me was the cutest thing I saw. Everyone else in grayscale. Only where he was did things shine brightly. So I killed myself. Unexpectedly, the moment I killed myself, the entire world began to collapse. Only then did I know that I was the linchpin of this entire world. The consequence of my suicide was that the entire world would be buried with me, and that system thing would also be punished. So I was that powerful. In the end, the system begged for mercy, and I took the opportunity to say, "Then let's make a deal." The request I made was that when the next player came, I wanted Ethan Walker to be able to hear the conversations between the player and the system. After all, for so long, Ethan Walker didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with so many people pursuing me. He would only think I was more and more messed up, and that those people were blind, and he would leave me. I just wanted him to hear from someone else's mouth how much I love him, because he never seemed to believe it when it came from me. I actually asked the system, since you all know that the players can't save me and that I will only stay for Ethan Walker, why not just make him my main character from the start? The system's answer was, actually, Ethan Walker doesn't possess the qualities of a main character. We didn't think he was qualified to be the one to save you. Ethan Walker was selfish. He wouldn't give up his future for me. The fact that I couldn't get into the same university as him, he would never condescend to accommodate me. His attitude was always, if you can get in, great. If you can't, then get lost. Ethan Walker was also not responsible at all. He clearly promised my dad he would discipline me, but when I didn't listen, he would just complain, I can't handle your daughter. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. Ethan Walker wasn't even kind. When someone bullied him, he would chase them down 3 streets for revenge. But if someone tried to bully me, he would definitely protect me. Ethan Walker was also indecisive in the face of problems. As you know, readers don't really like main characters like that. But I just love him like that. Ethan Walker might be very selfish. He might not even love me. But you have to love yourself before you can love others. I'm a love-obsessed fool. The system also asked me, how did you find out they were all players? I said, because the way they looked at me every time they appeared, it was like a long-planned conspiracy, just like the countless times I appeared in front of Ethan Walker. The difference is, in their eyes there was no love, there was only conquest, a determined salvation just for the sake of a mission. But when I look into Ethan Walker's eyes, if he would just look at me directly, he would see that I've already lost my composure. We don't have to become what a main character is supposed to be. We just need to be ourselves, and someone will cross 1,000 miles to love us.